What's up, all my musicians out there? So I remember what it's like being a starving artist, hustling as much as I could on music, waiting for it to kind of make money while doing as many random side jobs as I could. And one of the best side jobs that I did was being a Lyft and Uber driver. You turn on the app whenever you want, you drive, you turn off the app whenever you want, so it's super flexible with your schedule, and you don't really need any prior experience. I mean, you just need to be able to drive. And when I drove for Lyft and Uber, not only was it a great source of income that allowed me to have a flexible schedule so I could keep pursuing music, but I actually found a lot of unique tips and tricks to maximize my earnings through Lyft and Uber and promote my music at the exact same time. So in this very unique video, I'm gonna give you 7 Uber and Lyft pro tips specifically designed for musicians. Number 1, business cards. I spend, I think it was like $15 on 1,000 of these, and it's 100% worth the money. Because when you start driving for Lyft and Uber, you'll notice, and this is a very typical thing, when you're driving, and people are like, oh, so what do you do? Like, what do you do besides Lyft and Uber? Any single time I said I was a musician, I'd say something like, oh, I'm actually a DJ and electronic music producer. Sometimes, some people would be like, oh, that's interesting, and then they go right to their phone. Other times, though, people are like, oh, really? You're a DJ? Like, you're an electronic artist? What's your SoundCloud? What's your Spotify? So on this business card, I basically have, as you can see, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, YouTube, my email, and my main website. You can even input on your Spotify, basically whatever you want. And I think what's good about this is that, one, my last name is Facero, which is also my artist name. So when I try to explain that to people, and they'd be like, oh, well, what's your Spotify? If I was like, oh, it's Freccero, they'd be like, oh, okay, and they probably would never check it out. But when I hand them a business card, it's kind of like, one, that can obviously easily spell it and look at my social media accounts via this way, but also, 2, is that, let's say they're going about their day and they kind of forget about the Lyft and Uber ride, and let's say they pull it out of their pocket and they're like, oh yeah, I remember talking to this driver who said he was a DJ, he makes EDM. You know what? Let me check him out. Number 2, have your music queued up. You'll be surprised how many times people will ask you, especially if you mention you're a musician, but you make folk music, you make pop, you make hip hop or EDM or whatever. Play some of your music. Like, we're driving, why not play some of your own music? And in the beginning, I didn't really have my music queued up or ready to go because I thought it was a little bit like narcissistic, right? Being like, oh, yo, check out my newest demo or check out my mixtape or something like that. But if someone asks for it, why not show them your music, right? Now, one thing I do want to say is don't be that person driving who's like, oh, like, I'm a musician. You want to hear my, newest demo or you want to check out my SoundCloud? Because it can be a little bit annoying. But if they ask for it, why not show them? And this is kind of like a feeling it out type situation because there were some times when I was driving that I could tell the person was just trying to make small talk, just trying to be polite. They didn't really care I was a musician. They were just like, oh, cool, you make music. Interesting. And they just, they're just trying to be polite. But other times, though, verbally, they'd ask, like, oh, you're an EDM artist? Like, I actually love electronic music. Play some of your stuff. So I highly suggest, whether it's on your phone or however you want to do it, just have your music ready to go just in case, because I promise you this question will come up. Number 3, schedule around the optimal time for music. Now, I know that's like a very long pro tip, but for me personally, and every musician's different, I produce the best in the morning. I love waking up, having some coffee and working my music immediately. Now, other musicians, maybe you want to wait a little bit later during the day, or maybe only work at night. So I suggest with a lot of musicians, especially because Lyft and Uber is so flexible, is basically schedule the driving time around when you're going to be working on music, right? So for me personally, I'd wake up, I'd work on music, and I'd drive later during the day. Now, there are other days where, say, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm not really feeling that creative right now. I'm going to drive maybe in the morning, and then I'm working on it later. Now, for me, doing all kind of the analytics and the algorithms for Lyft and Uber, I found the best times to drive were the morning commutes, evening commutes, and Friday and Saturday nights. Probably no surprise to anybody. 7 to 9 a.m., 5 to 7 p.m., and basically Friday and Saturday nights from maybe 7 or 8 p.m. to 3, maybe 4 a.m. So what I try to do with Lyft and Uber is drive during those optimal times while also making sure that I almost schedule that time just for making music. Number 4, promote your events. Now, this is something I feel out a lot, and I even sometimes wear this in kind of like a joking way. Like, say I'm talking to somebody and say they're like, oh, you're a DJ, that's really, really cool. Like, I love electronic music, or I love nightclubs, or whatever the case is. Sometimes I'll say it as kind of like a casual, almost kind of like a funny way. So let's say if I'm driving, someone's like, oh, you're a DJ, that's really cool. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, hey, I'm actually performing this Friday night at this nightclub in Boston or this nightclub in LA or whatever. If you're there, come say hi. So I kind of word it in a joking way. And I've actually had people be like, wait, so you're performing this Friday or this Saturday night at this nightclub? You know what? Maybe I'll stop by. Or is there any way you could put me on the guest list? And I'm like, hey, you know what? Why not? So it's a really cool way to kind of promote your events and get people to come. But I will say you do really want to feel this one out. Of course, you don't want to be that driver. Again, same thing with showing them your music where you're driving and you're like, oh, yo, you like folk music or you like rock music? I'm actually a rock musician. You have to come to my show this Friday night, or I'm performing this Saturday night, right? I always try to word it in a very light way. And again, this all comes down to feeling it out where you don't want to be shoving it in someone's face, but especially if they ask, and I get this a lot too, when say I was driving and I said I was a DJ, they'd be like, oh, you're a DJ, so are there any nightclubs that you're performing at, or are there any nightclubs that you prefer to perform at? And that would be a very unique stepping stone for me to be like, actually, yeah, I actually perform at this one nightclub. Hey, I'll be there Friday night. Hope to see you there. Number 5, driving around gigs. Now, this is a really cool pro tip that's super unique. So, let's say I'm DJing, right? And I get done, let's say around 2 a.m. The best time to drive on Friday and Saturday nights are when the bars are closing, people are trying to get home. So, for me, what I'd actually do is, like, say, pack up my equipment. And this obviously depends on how I'm feeling, but I then, like, go pack up my equipment. Like, say I'm still energized and wired from doing a DJ set. I'd pull up the app, see like, okay, wow, there's actually a really high surge rate right now, and I drive for a few hours because I'm already wide awake, I'm already there, my car's already there, I'm already kind of in that optimal spot right in the heart of the city, and I might as well drive. Now, I will say, this never happened, but I wish once I'd pick up somebody from the club that I just DJ'd at, because I think that'd be wicked funny if, like, say I had someone get in the car and be like, wait, when you just the DJ was performing. Another big pro tip on top of this is using a destination filter. So in case you didn't know, obviously when you drive for Lyft and Uber, you can bring somebody anywhere, right? It's kind of a unfortunate thing. You don't really know what you're going to get. But with a destination filter, what you would do is basically set it, and you basically put your home. And it says, okay, we're only going to accept rides if you're picking somebody up within a 1 to 2 mile radius of that destination. So like, say you get done with your set, and you're like, oh man, I'm super tired, I just want to go home. Why not set that destination filter? Because, hey, you're going to be going home anyway. If you get to pick somebody up and basically drop them off who lives kind of right near you, why not? There's even one time where I actually picked up my roommate while heading home, and he got in the car and he goes, wait, Mark, I didn't even notice it was you on the app. And I just drove him home, and it was like, wow, I'm getting paid to go home, which I'm doing anyway, and it's not like I have to go even any other circuitous route because I'm really bringing my roommate home at the exact same time. So using the destination filter and combining that with driving after gigs is such a cool pro tip to allow you to make more money so that we can wake up and be like, hey, I made so much good money from performing and from driving last night. Now I don't have to work. I can just focus on music. Number 6, having an aux cord. So I have a link this below in the description to the main one that I use when driving. I feel like when it comes to driving for Lyft and Uber, this is kind of like a 101 pro tip, right? That you just always have to have an aux cord, because it's really interesting too. And this has happened to me where I'll show somebody my music and they're like, oh, so you make EDM? I actually make EDM too. Here, where's your aux cord? And I'll show you some of my music. And so kind of like trade back and forth. And that can be really, really cool to obviously make like a new friend as well. And like be able to show each other unique music and stuff like that. Even if music doesn't even come up and someone's like, hey, I just want to play music that I want to hear right now because I'm going to the club. Just having an aux cord is really good customer service. And last, but definitely not least, number 7 is check the trunk. Now, this is a bit of a weird one, but this happened to me once and I made sure it never happened again. Now, as we all know as musicians, after you get done with the gig, you're super tired, you're exhausted, you put all your stuff in your car, you drive home, you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna pass out, I'll take my equipment out later or something like that. And what happened is I did just that, and the next morning I forgot about it. So I went to drive and I picked somebody up who was actually going to the airport. So they opened up my trunk and obviously all my equipment was there, and they're like, you have a bunch of random stuff in your trunk. And I was like, oh shoot. I was like, I forgot, I'm so sorry, I'm a DJ. I accidentally left all my stuff in the trunk at a gig last night. Is there any way you could sit in the back with your luggage? And they were fine with it. They're like, oh yeah, it's fine, no big deal. But I was thinking, if there was like, say, 3 people all going to the airport and they all have luggage, I may have had to cancel that ride. I mean, I don't even know what we would have done. So this is a super important pro tip that I know is kind of like a random one, but any single time you get done with a gig, especially if, like, say your car's just full of stuff. I mean, this is true just not for music equipment, but anything. Always check your car before you start driving. Check your trunk, check everything. Make sure it's super clean, super spotless, and make sure it looks incredibly nice.